Yeah, my number three film that shaped my feeling of loneliness is Coraline from 2009. This is a stop motion film directed by Henry Selick, starring the voices of Dakota Fanning, Terry Hatcher, and John Hodgman. And the IMDb plot summary is an adventurous 11-year-old girl finds another world that is a strangely idealized version of her frustrating home, but it has a sinister secret. So this is a movie that I chose because I was thinking back to just different types of loneliness that I've experienced, and I think as a child, at least, there is a very kind of specific type of loneliness that you feel when you're younger and still living at home, and that's the part of your life, and maybe this is also kind of a phase too, where your parents are kind of busy, they have lives, they have jobs, things like that, and you're no longer a little child, so they're not spending a lot of time caring for you. And then you also don't feel like they understand you either. And there's a sense of boredom that sets in too. And then that can be very lonely. I mean, this character is just moved. So her friend circle is no longer there. And I can definitely relate
Hmm.
to that at different times in my life too. And boredom kind of breeds loneliness if you're a child. Does that yeah, in terms of had you seen this film before, actually? I'll start with that.
Yeah, no, I had seen it and I don't remember much of it, but I remember really enjoying it and liking it and also
Hmm.
being scared by it, but also wowed by it. I think this is one of the first stop motion movies I'd seen. So
Mm.
it definitely left a mark.
Hmm.
But to your point of, it's interesting. I was thinking about that because I moved a lot too. I don't know if I've shared this on the podcast, but I grew up as an army brat. So we moved a lot,
Hmm.
sort of lock, stock, and barrel, new place, no friends, new school, all of it. And in theory, that can lead to a lot of that kind of loneliness because you're sort of plopped from one place and you're in no man's land, 2 years after.
Hmm.
But I think I got very lucky because our family unit of four felt like such a constant through
Right.
all of that change, especially
Mm.
my sister, my mom, and I. Like we were each other's best friends. So I'm sure there were moments of sort of what you talked about, kind of boredom or loneliness. But for the most part, looking back at my childhood and even teenage years or early teens and such, I didn't really experience much of that.
Well, that's not that's good. Yeah,
Yeah,
that you
it's
had that
just kind
family
of,
unit.
yeah, exactly. And maybe I felt some of the opposite. I suppose that, oh, I would love to kind of venture out and just do my own thing
Mm.
sometimes.
Because you're right,
Um,
right. Because you have that unit, and sometimes you just want to be on your own. Yeah,
right. Yeah.
yeah, definitely
But
different than in Coraline. Clearly, like a lot of this actually, of her frustrations are with her parents, right? That they won't
yeah.
hang out with her, they won't play with her. She doesn't have those friends, and then finds this other world that, like the plot summary described, is this perfect world where like the parents are giving her everything that
Hmm.
she wants and are there to entertain her and play with her when she needs. And that is obviously everything she wants, and it's kind of instantly given to her. And she's like, "Oh, great! Like, why would I then go back to my real parents and my real life? Because this is sort of a perfect life." And then, as the
Hmm.
plot summary says too, like it does turn into sort of a nightmare world. And I kind of view that again as I was thinking about each of my films. It's like, how do you process loneliness? And, she kind of gets deceived in a way by this button
Hmm.
world of these, evil versions of all the people that she knows and loves, that it's an easy fix, that your loneliness solved just by other people doing things for you. There's no effort that she has to put into it. It's just, okay, well, if you guys were just play with me more, then I wouldn't be lonely, instead of
Hmm.
like you were just saying, right? Like, maybe it's reaching out to her parents, or maybe it's finding something else to do and going outside and, meeting someone new in the town, which there are some interactions she makes with some of the neighbors and things. But I think the lesson in this movie, at least through the lens of loneliness to me, was that you have to own your own
Hmm.
solve here. And that it's not an easy solution, and you can't expect others to help you through this. It's something that you
Hmm.
have to kind of look inside and figure out, okay, what is it really that'll help get through this time of feeling lonely? Because even in this film, I don't think it's ever meant to be permanent um
Hmm.
for her. But so I think that's sort of how I read the lesson of this. That not only is it very unique in terms of how, as a kid, boredom equals loneliness, but even in that scenario too, entertain yourself. I mean, I know this
Right.
movie was set in, I don't know if there's a time period or some alternate world. There was no internet. It's not like she can, get on Twitter or Instagram and spend the time, which nowadays, for better or for worse, we can do that. So boredom's not maybe as much as an issue for us. But yeah, the fix is not easy.
Yeah. And to your point, like you have to own a part of it.
Hmm.
Uh, especially if you're able, because this is loneliness can be such a layered, complicated subject because it ventures in the territory of mental health and
Sure,
such
exactly.
pretty
Right, right.
easily.
Mm-hmm.
So there might be situations where somebody just isn't able to
Mm-hmm.
do that, and that sort of becomes a totally different thing. But yeah, if
Exactly.
you are able, some of the onus is on you too. But that said, it's also hard as a child,
Of
when you're moving
course.
up and down and such.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
um, but yeah, this movie is so brilliantly crafted too. And maybe this is stating the obvious, but like coming up with the idea of the button world, and
Mm-hmm.
like to me, I always read that as eyes are such a kind of core expression device for
Mm-hmm.
human connection or even living connection of any kind,
Right,
that you
right.
take that away, it's sort of, yeah, all the nice things are being said, and mom is making pot roast and pies, and dad is there playing with you and what have you. But if those eyes and that expression and that real true warmth,
Mm-hmm.
which has is layered, right? Sometimes it's connection is warm, sometimes it's you're being ignored as a child, sometimes you're being scolded, like it's all of the above. Like that's sort of the
Exactly.
other message, is that you can't just latch on to the things that you think you want from your parents or your relationships, because that's not a complete picture of a relationship.
Exactly.
So in many ways, like taking away the eyes and replacing them with buttons sort of kind of exemplifies that, or it manifests in that way, which I thought is very clever.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, I think a lot of they take advantage of the fact that this is stop motion, so you can do a lot
Yeah.
more interesting things than definitely you could live action, but even sort of more traditional hand drawn or CG animation. And I do love that the even her as a character in the real world's very kind of drab, but she really stands
Mhm.
out with her,
Mhm.
yellow jacket and her blue purple hair. And it
Yeah.
really just shows how she doesn't fit in. She doesn't
Yeah.
blend in with everything else that's going on, and it was just sort of the opposite of a lot of loneliness. You might want to put a very colorful world with one character who's all in black and white and kind of moping around. And it's interesting that they kind of flipped it, where the world is the thing that's boring because it's not entertaining her, and she has she's trying to make connections, but in the button world everything is really colorful.
Mhm.
And yeah, the craft involved in this is just next level, and it's definitely
Amazing.
one of the best stop motion animated films. I saw this in the theater and it was in 3D, and I can't recall actually if I saw it in
Mm.
3D when I saw it. But even watching it now again for the podcast on in 2D, you can really just see like the sense of depth, especially as she goes into that button world through that tunnel. That is even just like
Yeah.
very cool, though it's still in 2D.
Pretty amazing, actually. I know in some older podcasts, I might have made a comment of like stop motion, may not be my thing. I think when we did the
Oh, Nightmare on Christmas.
Nightmare,
Yeah, Night Before Christmas.
exactly. I take back my words
Oh,
after
okay.
watching this movie. And as I was watching, we like, oh, actually, I do like this a lot. This is really, really well done.
Yeah, same director. That's
Yeah,
yeah,
Henry
same
Selick. Yeah,
director.
exactly.
Yeah.
Pretty amazing.
Hey there, it's Alex. If you like the review and discussion Karan and I just had, make sure you subscribe to our channel, Movies That Shaped Us, to get full episodes. Every other Wednesday, Karan and I cover a topic around important people, places, events, and moments in our lives, and then explore it through 3 of our favorite movies. Subscribe right now, or follow our podcast on Spotify or Apple Podcasts via the link in the description below. Hope you join us for the journey.